moving on.
Vanderbilt is the next team on the schedule. We have to know who they are, what they're about, what they do. We got to know the DNA of that team. But as we mentioned last week, going into the Georgia game, it truthfully is about us, our execution, who we are, our standards, meeting the standards and the expectations that we have for ourselves, and trying to go out there and play better and better every single week and improve our game.
You had a moment with Xavier on the field after the game, big ol' hug. What was your message to him during that embrace?
You know, you love to see when a guy puts in the work throughout the week and really earns the right to go into a game with confidence, and then let that confidence really be gained by a game day execution. And so there's being proud of him just from the standpoint of, you know, we talked about Xavier months ago about his process and the work that he puts in throughout the week. We fully expected to play well and do a lot of good things, and it's for the sole purpose because I thought the guys prepared the right way throughout the week. And so it's just a reminder and really just being proud of him and showing that hard work always pays off and the proper preparation leads to game day execution. Yeah, you know, you love where Damani is right now in terms of I think he's in a good mental space. I think he also knows that we're trying to be critical on ourselves and find every single thing we can to improve our game. And you love that he's going out there and he's competing. He's in a sweet spot in terms of how hard he's competing. You know, he's got a natural skill set. Everybody talks about how athletic he is and those things. I think what's coming a lot for him is his football character, him watching extra film. He came in the office on Tuesday, watched extra film. On Wednesday, watched extra film, taking proper notes, and he's putting in the work throughout the week. He's another guy that's going into games with a confidence, and it's a healthy confidence because he's preparing the right way, and then he's going out there and executing on game day. You know, he's done a really good job of, like, just by nature of being one of the older guys in the room and having such a young room and so many freshmen around him. He's taken on some ownership in terms of, you know, being intentional with building personal relationships with each one of the guys and trying to have those personal relationships build trust where he can be in a position to lead guys. And I think he's done a really good job since he stepped in January. He's been real humble with the guys, really kind of putting an arm around guys, real encouraging with the guys. And I think, you know, he's out there making plays on Saturday, which also helps your voice. It helps you have a bigger voice when you can back up what you're saying with the actual performance. But his heart's in a good place. His head's in a good place with how he wants to lead the guys. And I think guys are taking ownership to what he's saying as well.
Coach Long talked about how difficult it was to play against Georgia when they were basically going for it on every fourth down. How does that change for the defensive backs? How does that change for you guys? What was your messaging with that kind of approach from Jordan?
Right. You know, we probably all expected, you know, a lot of tight games and back and forth, and then you look up and maybe we're up a few scores, which kind of shifts the dynamic of the approach of how an offense is going to now look at you, because at a certain point you're just going to run out of possessions. So you're almost playing a lot of the third, mid-third, all the way in the fourth quarter as 2 minutes throughout the entire game. So, you know, we've talked about internally as a staff, you know, hey, what would we adjust? What would we change? What do we need to emphasize? If we're in this situation again, how would we do this differently? And just peeling back the layers of the game and knowing, okay, hey, here's what went right. Here's the things that we need to improve upon. But, hey, if we're ever in this situation again, here's some calls we could go to. Here's what we could do in this situation. And just always, you know, it's a continuous process of, okay, here's what happened in the game and how do we improve upon the things we didn't do well at.
Question for you about the substitutions. Every staff in the country rotates on the defensive line, but this staff does more rotations at linebacker and DB than I've seen. What's the logic behind that?
I think number one, for a guy to be on the football field, there has to be trust. There has to be trust that we believe he's at the standard that we need him to be at to execute and do his job. If we have multiple players that are proving throughout the week in practice that can do their job, the deeper that we can make our roster, we believe, the better ultimately. And you get experience through actually going out there in the game. You got to prove that you can do it in practice, but when you do it in the game, you know, 1 rep can turn into 2, 2 can turn into 4. We know that when you play long seasons, at times we're going to be called upon to maybe not have necessarily our star players go out there and do well for us. It may be an unlikely hero. It may be maybe a depth guy or a guy that's taking backup reps in August that we're going to rely upon maybe in October, November, December to go out there and make a play for us. So we're trying to always continue to find ways to build depth on our roster, and we're doing that with practice reps and also game day experience. And if you're earning the right by way of execution to be on that football field and the 10 other guys can trust you, we want to have the deepest team possible going into the later parts of the season.
Speaking of practice, you hear iron sharpens iron all the time. What's it like out there?
Competitive excellence. I mean, we have playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. You know, I see what Milroe does on game day, and we see it every day in practice, and it just makes us better. The receivers on the outside, Ryan Williams, Coach Shep does a phenomenal job with those wideouts. Ryan Williams and Bernard and number one, and I mean, you can go down the list. So the one-on-ones that are created in practice every day, we're trying to tell guys, let's make the practice harder than the game to a certain extent. You know, the game is the game, but let's take these reps. And when Xavier's taking reps against Ryan and when Damani's taking reps against Ryan, it's only going to make you better, right? So, you know, we're trying to develop that internal competitiveness where we want to make practice at a really high rate, really competitive, where guys are competing, and then we're going to take that over to Saturdays on game day.
If someone's brand new to vision coverage, how would you explain what are the principles of it? What are the keys to vision coverage, and how have you seen that kind of manifest through football?
Well, I think when you look at the spokes of how you want to build the back end, and you know the essence of really playing well in the back end, maybe it's not one in particular thing, but it's how things are tied in together. So when you're talking about the element of vision coverage, the first thing you have to understand is why are we in this vision situation? What are the strengths of vision? What are the weaknesses of vision? What are the things that we must take away? And then what are we inviting on tape by way of being a vision team? If we're in that situation, what would our offense go to? Okay, when you're dropping guys in the areas of the field, and maybe sometimes quarterbacks, when they're getting 5 out and scat and they're trying to get 5 guys out in a pattern, we have to tie in the rush and the coverage. And then at times, when you're in man-to-man, you can challenge intermediate throws a lot better. But if balls are caught underneath, we got to make sure we have our cleats in the ground where it's a ball-out break mentality where yak is not created. If you look at us right now, we're giving up about 5 yards per passing attempt right now throughout 4 games, which I think is top 10 in the nation right now. And one of the elements of that is not letting yards after the catch happen. So even if a completion does occur, if you're in a vision element, it's a ball-out break. You're looking at the directional delivery key of the quarterback. You're looking at that front hand. You're looking to take the proper angles and make sure there's no yak, and then always eliminating big plays down the field. We're putting a roof over the things and always trying to make sure that if you're supposed to be in a deep third, be over the top. Post safety, make sure you have depth to the defense. Your post, deep as the deepest in the post, seam to seam, pick it or hit it, numbers to numbers, tips and overthrows. It's a ball-out break mindset, and just trying to tie in how we move from vision to man to match to zone, complement it all in together, have this pre-snap disguise, and make sure that we're giving quarterbacks as much possible stress before the ball turns over as possible to identify what we're in.